Okay, thanks for everyone for joining us today. We got a really cool topic today. A lot of you have been asking for this for the past 2 years since we started Open to Close. So this should be a great topic to build off of in the future. Today we have Daniel with Interface. He's the CEO of Interface, and he's going to be showing us how to use outside forms outside of Open to Close to get data into Open to Close through the API and set off all of your automation from there. We also have Shannon. She's the director of ops at Whissel Realty Group, and she is going to give us some real world examples of how they're actually utilizing this in their business to enhance the automations and just improve efficiency overall. With that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Daniel. Actually, one more thing before we get started. If you do have questions, go ahead and put them in the question and answer. I will be monitoring the question and answer throughout. Some of the more relevant questions we'll go ahead and tackle during the presentation, and then the rest we'll save for the end, and we'll try to stop a little short so we have time for some questions. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Daniel. Daniel, thanks for being with us today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. So yeah, primarily Shannon's going to go through our process. Okay. So yeah, primarily we're going to go through, I think Shannon will do a sales example. So we'll start with the agreement signed. Our system starts at appointment set. So we have some interesting functionality where we create a deal when an appointment is set, and we send out a text to the agent a few hours after the appointment is scheduled to begin, asking if the appointment happened or not, and they just click on a link and fill out a form, and it does a bunch of fun stuff in Follow Up Boss. But we're not going to focus on that today. The Open to Close integration, we start at agreement signed. So we're going to do an agreement signed form. We're going to do a pending form for when it goes under contract. And then what you guys will probably find interesting is if a pending falls out of contract, we have some interesting functionality. So we'll go through that process as well. But one thing to keep in mind during this webinar is this was developed for the Whissel team, but we can essentially make Open to Close do whatever. Like, we can build features on top of Open to Close. If what you guys are doing aren't quite aligned with the Whissel team, we can build a lot of other functionality. So keep that in mind. If you have suggestions or questions or functionality you want to see, just let us know and we can look into building that out. So without further ado, let's switch this over to Shannon and she'll walk us through how it works.
Cool. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm just going to demo how it works, how our agents submit listings and transactions over to us, and then what the different stuff that happens on the back end after they've submitted a listing or submitted a transaction to us. So let me see, continue. Okay, so I'm just going to go through how our agents submit basically all the listings, transactions, all that good stuff. And where this starts is from within FUB. They've got the lead record right here. And from there, let's say there's a couple of different things that could happen. The first one being like at the appointment set stage. So when an agent sets an appointment, they would come over here, they go to appointment set, they fill out the form. It's a pretty short form. And then it updates all of our systems, all in FUB and in Sisu are the systems that we use at our team for keeping track of all our numbers and all our leads and everything. Now, it can start at the agreement stage. So if an agent gets a new listing agreement signed, and that's the example I'm going to go through right now, where they would go here and they would go to agreement sign form. It's all within FUB already. So what it's going to do is it actually pulls all of the information about the lead, about the client automatically. So I'm just putting in like test here. It's going to be a seller transaction.
And these forms are fully customizable. So if you have a form, like an intake form set up in Open to Close now, we can just duplicate what's on there. But we minimize the data that needs to be entered. So you'll notice we're not collecting like the phone number and the email because that's already in Follow Up Boss. So why re-enter it a second time when you're entering it into Open to Close? So when the form is submitted, we just extract all that data and pull it into Open to Close.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing I will point out is our team in particular, we're very hands-on with our agents. And I know not every team does it this way. So we really, we have an in-house listing coordination team and an in-house transaction coordination team. And they're really like our listing and our transaction coordinators are very much so like almost the primary point of contact for the clients, even more so than the agents themselves on our team, which means we ask for a ton of information in these forms. The forms are long for us and our team. They can be as short, as customizable, whatever information you need. This is something we've spent quite a bit of time like figuring out, okay, I need this, I don't need that, all that stuff with Daniel, and he's been able to customize for us based on what our team actually needs. But again, it's not a one size fits all thing. What the agents do is they basically will go through and they'll fill out the form.
And Shannon, quickly, can you show what happens if you were to put like yes for secondary client?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So the form's dynamic. So depending on what's on, you don't need to fill that out. You just switch it back to no, but we can have other fields appear, disappear, other pages on the form. We make the form look as clean as possible, but it's very dynamic.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we've really pushed over the last several months is trying to make our forms as simple as possible for our agents. Now, they are still pretty long, to be honest, and the agents still don't like doing them. They never will, but, and that's okay. But we really try to minimize like how much we're asking them for. And that's one thing that's been really helpful is like, I don't have to enter in the contact information here because it's already in FUB and it's going to pull it automatically. So that's one thing that our agents have given us a lot of positive feedback on is that like they hate doing all that duplicate data entry. They don't want to do it in multiple places. Neither do we. So that's really I guess, the biggest accomplishment with all the systems that we've tied together is eliminating that duplicate data entry, not just for the agents, but also for us too. So I'm just going to put in some info in here.
Yeah, and our goal is no duplicate data entry throughout the organization. So once the data is entered in one place, we want to put it everywhere else it needs to go. It's not for us. We don't want the agent to have to type it once and then staff to have to type it a second time. Once it's in there, that should be it.
Exactly. And then some of the things for our forms, like for us, we have an in-house media team. Not everybody has that. So you might not need this information, but this is the stuff that we need to know to be able to process a listing. One thing I do want to point out is like right here, if they choose today's date for when they want to do photos, it's not enough notice for us. So we were able to build in like some rules and things for the agents so that they can't inadvertently choose something on there that isn't possible. So I'm just going to change that. Okay.
And if those rules show up, the form can't be submitted.
Yeah, exactly. So for example, one of the things is we require 7 days notice to be able to put the property on the market. So today's the 10th. If I choose tomorrow, it tells them that the minimum notice for going live is 7 days and it won't let them submit the form without that. Let me see. I'm trying to do this kind of the simple way so that, you know, you don't sit here watching me do a bunch of data entry. This is a good example of not having to do the duplicate data entry again for our agents is we ask this on the agreement form for a seller. So we don't have to usually ask it on the pending form. If the rules apply. So like basically it's like if they say yes here, then we already have that information. And then we're also able to make sure that we're working with the same information throughout the whole process. So I'm going to say no here though, so that I can go through this a little faster.
And what we're going to be releasing more and more of is we're going to pre-populate the form with data that was entered on earlier forms. So if you enter one of these fields on the agreement signed form, and then you also have it on the pending form, the data will show up on the pending form. So that way you don't have to write it in again, or you can update it if the data has changed.
Okay, so like on the next page, it's going to prompt them to upload documents, all that good stuff. But at this point, once they've actually inputted all that information, and you can make whatever you want required, right? So like we only have one file required in here. You can customize it based on your needs. We let our agents combine everything all into one, but some teams I know require that they separate different PDFs, things like that. So you can set that up based on your own needs. Okay, so now that I've submitted it and I come back here to, it changes the deal stage or the contact stage in FUB to an active client. It's got a log of all the stuff in here. So there's like a record of it within FUB. And then also it shows up here as an opportunity, which is like the interface app. This is Daniel's stuff, his app.
Mhm.
But it also shows up right here in the deals as a seller signed, so that our agents have an actual real pipeline of their deal stages and everything. So once they have the seller signed, then it shows up here. It also shows up in Sisu, which is what we use for all of our like numbers and like all that stuff when we're going through and doing coaching with the agents. It comes into Sisu also as a seller, assigned seller as well.
And pretty much anything that you want to have happen in Follow Boss, we can trigger. And so the benefit of that is training agents on what to do at the different stages is a challenge, especially outside agents. Inside agents are easy and they actually love our appointment form, but outside agents, it's like herding cats. If you can consolidate everything, applying tags, updating the contact stage, triggering action plans to the form, agents can fill out a form. Those are instructions they can handle. And then they fill out the form and then they get back to selling because that's what you want them to be doing anyway. Awesome. So let's go open to close.
This is actually a good place to stop for a second. I got my audio working, by the way. I can hear you guys finally. So this is a good place to stop. I actually get this a lot from clients. Can you go, and I know you just brushed over it a little bit, but a lot of our clients are looking to get data into Google Forms or Google Sheets. They're looking to get data over to DataBox. They're looking to get data, all these different places. This is something that Daniel can help you with. It doesn't have to be it's not a cookie cutter solution. He can get data wherever you need it to go. So can you go into that just a little bit before we move on, Daniel?
Yeah, definitely. So what's great about the form system that we use internally for these forms is it works really well with Zapier. Anything that connects to Zapier, we can push data into. And the other thing that we're planning on doing very soon is integrating other form systems. So if you have like a Jot form or a Cognito form or any other form system, we want to configure the embedded app to be able to embed the forms you already have into Follow Boss. So if anybody has forms that they use, we definitely want to set up a call and discuss how we can do that. But the buttons that, if you can scroll up a little bit, Shannon, click on the plus symbol.
And just so you know, I'd say about 60 to 70% of our clients had previously used some type of form. So typically that's going to be Wufoo, Jotform, or Cognito, like you mentioned. Those three are probably about 90% of the forms that are being used. A couple of people are using Power Forms, things like that. But Daniel will be able to help you guys out with all those in the future.
Yeah, so the plan is we want to be able to tie in the forms that you're already using and then put them in these buttons. So when you click on the agreement signed button, if you have an agreement signed form that you're already using, we can go to your form and have that sync back into Follow Boss and to Sisu. So that's like the next step in our process. If teams out there are filling out a Jot form and then having somebody else manually add that data into open and close, you're definitely going to want to schedule a call with us.
So this is something that comes up quite a bit, is the ability to take a current transaction like Shannon's doing and turn it into a pending listing without having to create two different transactions. So what this is going to enable you to do is exactly what you guys have been asking for. So this will be able to do that. And then I didn't even tell Daniel or Shannon this yet, and Shannon's not using it, but we just talked to CTE today. So any CTE users, we are looking at an integration there as well. So if you're using Sisu, if you're using DataBox, if you're using CTE, we're going to be able to cover all of those in the future for you.
And yeah, so let's quickly check out before we fill out the pending form, let's see what was created in open and close.
So right here, we've got Starkey Way, which is what I just put in here. Now we have this all customized where we have a certain like naming convention, the way we use it, but I think by default, actually, it just comes in as a normal address. We just had Daniel change it up here as the property title. Now I will point out so we started with OTC just a couple of months ago, and we actually focused on the pending stage of stuff first. And then we've been working on the agreement stage and the listing stage of stuff since then. So we're still working on that process as far as like how things come over on the seller side. But we do have the listing side, I guess I should say, before we're actually in escrow with a buyer. So it's not fully done yet, but you can see it does come over here, and we do have what's in pre-list status. It's got a seller transaction. It's got most of the information in here. And then once we fill out a pending form, then it takes this exact same transaction in OTC, the exact same property in OTC, and it switches it over to an escrow. And then that's when our TC team actually takes over, and it's like triggers a whole new process, basically.
Yeah, let's go through that process really quick. Because I think what teams really might be excited about is the pending canceled, how we can, if something falls out of escrow. So you're going to need a refresh. Would create a new one.
And just so everybody knows, Shannon is on the scale plan, which hasn't been released yet. She's on the beta. So she has some things that you may not see in yours. If you want to do some of this stuff after the fact, triggers after the fact, you will have to upgrade to that scale plan to be able to do some of these things. So you can message me and you can get more information on that if you have questions.
Cool. So then once we're ready to, once we start getting offers in, all that stuff, they've accepted an offer at that point, then what our agents do is they come over here. And they're going to submit, see, it's got the current stage right here as agreement signed. So then they're going to submit the pending form. And it takes them to a very similar form. We try to keep all the formatting all the same so that it doesn't feel like it's new for them. And they'll basically go through that same process where they're going to fill out the stuff for the escrow, right? So some of the information's already pre-populated, like the transaction amount, things like that. But obviously, if the purchase price changes from the list price, then they would just put in the new transaction amount, the under contract date, the forecasted closing date. We try to break up our forms into multiple pages so that they don't feel like this big daunting thing for the agents. We try to make it as user-friendly as possible for them. Okay, so opposite side client name. If you say, is there an opposite secondary client? So there's two buyers on the other side of the transaction, you'd say yes, and then it prompts to put in their name. If there wasn't, you'd say no, and then it gets rid of that field. The cooperating agent company, oops. Some things, again, we have complete control over what's required, what's not required. So if we have the TC's name, if our agent already knows the other side's TC, they can put it in here. We don't have that as a requirement because a lot of times they don't have that information at this point. If they have it and they're one of our more detail-oriented agents, they usually are pretty good about putting it in here because then it just makes the process a little smoother and faster for everybody. But again, we don't require it because we don't always have that info. They don't always have that info.
How many agents are on your team, Shannon?
We've got about 65.
And how many are detail oriented?
One or two. I was thinking, in my head, I was thinking you're unicorns.
Yeah, she was talking
More
about detail oriented. I didn't want people to get the wrong impression and think that they had 65 detail oriented buyer
Yeah.
agents and make you feel bad about your business.
No, I would say probably a generous, like 5 of them are like, can you add more stuff to the forms? Like, I want to be able to give you this information in advance. The rest of them are like, wait, no, I don't have this information. Can you unrequire this field? And we try to listen to their feedback too, based on what's practical, right? If it doesn't make sense, if they really don't have that information up front to give to us, then we don't require it. But generally speaking, they have the other side, the cooperating agent. They always have that when they're receiving an offer. It's on the contract itself. So we try to keep it, we do try to like really take their feedback and implement it based on their needs and what's practical. Plus, we also want the forms to be as easy for them to fill out. Otherwise, they take forever to do it. And then we're already behind on our deadlines.
Yep.
As soon as we get the pending form. Yep. Right here, what we have here is we have like our preferred escrow companies. We have, if they choose from our preferred companies, Pinnacle Escrow, Homelight, whatever it might be, then it doesn't prompt them to give us any more information because those are like our partners that we work with all the time. But if they choose other for the escrow company, then it does prompt them to put in their information, their email, their phone number, all that good stuff.
Yeah, great.
One thing I do want to point out is we actually, just to speed up our own turnaround times, is we did set up, you can see right here, it says the contract will automatically be sent to this email when you upload it on page 2. So we actually built in an automation where as soon as the agent uploads the purchase agreement, it automatically sends the client's contact information and the contract over to the escrow officer. Now, I know not everybody's thrilled with that type of automation because then you're dependent on making sure the agents put the stuff in correctly, but that is like an option. It's pretty limitless. Like this is something that we wanted to do to speed up our turnaround times and make sure that the buyers can get their deposit in really quickly, things like that. And it's something our agent specifically asked for. So we did that with an asterisk of, hey, we'll set this up, but you got to make sure you're giving us the right information. And we try to warn them of that. But that's something that could be set up if you wanted it to. If not, you definitely don't have to set up anything along those lines. Same thing with the financing. So if they choose it's conventional, they can choose from our dropdown of our preferred lenders here. If they choose other, then it prompts them to put in this stuff. But if they choose cash, oops. I think I confused the system because I have that area. So if I choose cash, it just gets rid of the mortgage information altogether. So they don't have to put in a lender. Title company, same thing. If we ask, is there a referral fee they're paying, then it'll prompt them to put in this information. If they say no, then it just gets rid of it. Same thing here, where are they co-representing it? And then if they are, then they'll choose from the list of our agents that they're co-representing the client with. All right, and then once I hit submit, now I'm actually not going to upload one of these because I didn't think to turn off the automation that sends it to our escrow officer, and I don't want her to get very confused about it. So I'm not going to upload this right here. But once we do and we hit submit, then it would automatically send it over to the escrow officer. But at this point, it has actually created or updated the existing transaction in OTC already based on them submitting like that first page. We do the documents separately so that there's less frustration.
Yes,
for the
it's two
agent.
separate forms. So when the pending form is submitted, we redirect it to the document upload form. So the data gets added and
Right
then
away.
it's a completely separate form.
Mhm.
Yes, let's go to,
So if I go over here, I always start with FUB because that's like where the agents start. So right here, you can see now it says that it's a pending transaction. The stage is pending right here. And the deal stage here is pending as well. Now it's not showing up in OTC in this little thing yet because we haven't gone in and connected it. That's something that our TC team does. But you can also see it's got the pending form entry right here. If I had uploaded documents, it would also have it right here in FUB as well.
Since we're talking about follow-up us right now, just an update for all the people that are listening. We are making their integration quite a bit better for FUBCon. So anyone going to FUBCon in November is going to see the release. a lot more automation, a lot less typing, a lot less clicks for you guys to connect. And then Shannon, one thing that you had asked for, the ability for open to close to find existing deals in Follow Up Us will be part of that as well.
Nice.
Awesome. And what we ideally want to do is automate that settings. I think you guys are looking into that, where when we create the deal and push the transaction into open to close, we'll just automatically connect the deal with the open to close property. So that automation will just work automatically. You won't have to go search for the Follow Up Us deal and connect it. We'll handle that connection automatically. That's a work in progress, but we'll get to it eventually, hopefully by FUBCon.
Cool. So then once we've submitted that form, and you can see right here, it says it's a seller transaction, and now the status is no longer pre-list. It shows it as new escrows to open. So it takes that existing listing and it updates it to be new escrows to open.
Exactly.
Now, there's a couple of things, actually, most of this fields, because I have to apply the field template. So there's a couple of manual things that we just haven't gotten to like start the automation quite yet, but manage property field. I'm going to do this so that you guys can see all the fields that came over. Because basically everything that's submitted on the pending form does come over onto the actual transaction. So you could see we've got like acceptance date, close of escrow date. Now, most of these other things are based on the actual contract itself, and we don't require our agents to actually input them on the form, so they don't show up automatically. But like the commission right here, the lead type, all that good stuff. And then the other big thing is going to be the contacts, which is huge. So we've got all the people that we selected for, okay, apparently I had a typo, but it's got like the escrow officer already in here, Barb Ross that I picked from the drop down, Betty Buyer. We have like default people that we are always use for everything, for like termite, stuff like that. Titles in here, listing agent information, all that good stuff. So they're all in here automatically. The seller's contact information, all that stuff. So it does come over into OTC from those forms, which for us has been like the biggest time saver.
Yeah, and we can program it to do anything based on how certain fields are submitted on the form. We could add certain contacts, and it's fully customizable. Really, it really is limitless. Like we're building our plot. We don't use like Zapier for this. We're building on Amazon Web Services. I'm sure Open to Close is built on Amazon Web Services. Really, your imagination is the limitation. Like almost anything is possible.
Now, one thing I saw earlier was the termination button. That's a question I get a lot, is if you're going to put all these into one transaction, how are you guys handling the termination of the buyer? So I know we don't have that recently, but we're going to get into it again. So a buyer cancels. How are you guys handling that?
Yeah, so we have a I think we call it pending canceled. What's it called, Shannon?
Yeah, I think it's pending canceled.
Yeah, so we have it set up. So there's a form back in, it's in Follow Up Us, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a closed form.
Yeah, it's a closed form. It's built into the closed form. What I got to read.
Yeah, so go over, yeah, there, perfect. So if you have something fall out of contract, we have a pending canceled functionality. We put it in the Whissel team's closed form, just the way their forms are set up. It makes more sense to put it here, but most teams would have it on the pending form. And so you just change the stage to pending. And then the pending stage is pending canceled. And this is gonna essentially create a new transaction in Open to Close. It's going to be linked back to that same deal in Follow Up Us, but we're going to copy all the data. What data is copied exactly, Shannon?
Currently all of it, because we just built this out recently. There's actually a couple tweaks that I want to make to it. But right now, what it does is it takes that existing OTC property and it literally just duplicates it. Because what happens for us anyway in our workflow is once something cancels, our listing coordinator needs to start working on getting the property back on the market right away. But our transaction coordinators are not necessarily done with that file yet. A lot of times they still have to collect like the cancellation the purchase agreement cancellation and make sure that escrow gets it so that the buyers can get their escrow or their deposit back, all that stuff, right? So once we know it's for sure canceling, then we actually submit this form, and it basically separates the two so that our listing coordinator can start working on putting the property back on the market. And we still have a record of the canceled transaction that our TC team is still working on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think we copy everything, but not the documents, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
that might be it.
Yeah, and you can customize that for people, Daniel, if they wanted some of the documents, like the, whatever it is, maybe like the listing agreement or something like that, they want to
Yeah.
keep.
Yeah. So we can set it up to pull whatever data from the original property to the new one that gets created. Again, it's fully customizable. Anything that you want to have happen can happen.
Awesome.
And another thing that we can do for teams maybe not using Follow Up Boss is we can embed that form into open to close. We could put, if you just wanted the pending canceled functionality, we can make it so when you create a open to close property, we embed a form in that allows you to cancel it when it's in pending and revert it back. That's definitely something we could do for teams that aren't using Follow Up Boss.
Awesome. Yeah, because we have a lot of people that aren't. We have a lot of people that are, but there's quite a few that aren't, that might be wanting to take advantage of some of this functionality.
So is this the transaction that was created, the new one?
No, probably not. Let me see. So now we've got, okay, I actually probably have 3 of these because this was an actual property that we had, an actual thing. So don't get confused by that.
Your TCs are going to love this.
I know. No, it's okay. They're used to me. And they know I'm hosting a webinar, so they're probably like, okay, it's fine, Shannon, do your thing. I'll hit them up afterwards. I try to be good about telling them what's up. Okay, so yeah, so right here, so we've got it as seller. This one shows up as canceled now. So it automatically changes that to a canceled transaction, and then it duplicates it. So this one is where our listing coordinator goes in and she like basically just puts it back as everything, like all the information that she was previously working with, she still has. And I didn't go through and do any documents and stuff like that, but all the documents would still be in there. She just removes whatever she doesn't need anymore.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. And so we're building out additional functionality. The closed functionality is still a work in progress and kind of in beta. We're setting it up when it goes closed in open to close, it'll update everything in Follow Up Boss. The contact stage would go to closed, the deal would go to closed, and whatever else you want to update in Follow Up Boss, you can update.
And what are you doing, Daniel, with the deals in Follow Up Boss? Are you actually populating that data into the custom fields yet, into the deals, or not yet?
We just started working on that because it's a fairly new feature in Follow Up Boss.
Okay.
But that, I think it's either in our current sprint or like the next one, 2 to 4 weeks, we'll be able to populate Follow Up Boss deal data.
Okay, sounds good. We're going to do the same thing as part of our upgrade for FUBCon. So depending on if you guys are with Follow Up Boss or not with Follow Up Boss, we'll just have to see what the best workflow for you, whether you're going to use ours or whether you would use Daniel's. So we can talk through that as you guys meet with him.
Yeah, whatever, like we want to make it so whatever works best for the team, you can do. If you want to use our forms, you can use our forms for a stage. If it makes sense to use open to close forms for one stage, but then you want to use one of our forms to update that transaction, then we can set that up. If you just want to use the pending canceled functionality, then we can set that up. Like it's pretty much anything is possible.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about having someone like Daniel on your team that you use quite often, because anything that you can dream up, he can help you get some of that stuff done and just really enhance your process and increase your efficiency tenfold most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not, again, we're not using Zapier. Like we're building out a integration platform that's focused on the best platforms in real estate. So we don't connect to all-in-one platforms. I'm just going to say it right now. If you're using an all-in-one platform, just switch to Follow Up Boss. I swear it'll be the best thing that you've ever done. But we're only focused on a very small group of platforms, and we're going to make the best integration possible for those platforms because we're not distracted by the other mediocrity in the real estate industry. So yeah, if you have the platforms that we integrate with, then you're going to want to schedule a call with us.
Yeah, I agree. There's a follow-up also. Obviously, I use it in my own business, so I'm a little impartial. But if you do have some of those other systems that Daniel was talking about, all-in-one systems that maybe don't work quite as well with APIs and things, we do have some third-party vendors that have the inside track on that. If you're stuck on, let's just use Boomtown, for example, we have some resources for you to go over there and pull that data as well. Anything else you want to cover before? No questions. Everyone's super quiet today. I can't believe there's no questions on this because I get questions 50,000 times a day on this. So I'm surprised no one's speaking up. So if anyone has questions on this for Daniel, put them in the Q&A. But anything else you want to cover, Daniel or Shannon mentioned about, no, Shannon hasn't been on the platform that long, but they really went deep into it quick and asked a lot of questions, and they got set up really quickly for how much automation they have involved in their system.
It hasn't been that long. When did
I think since December, maybe.
Yeah.
December-ish?
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
And we've only had, so on the transaction side, it's been a couple of months, but on the listing side, it's only been, I think maybe like a month or two. So we're still like, we've only barely scratched the surface on the listing agreement stuff. I'm like working with my listing coordinator all the time, trying to get stuff built out, figuring it all out, but there's never enough hours. But on the TC side, and we're in California too, which means it's a behemoth of a process for us. Like just the sheer number of documents that are potentially required per transaction. It's a beast to build out for sure. But I will say whether it's OTC or FUB or CISO, anything along those lines, like if you can somehow make the time to build it out and make it work for you, it's been worth every single second we've put into it. It's saved us so much time and effort. And my TCs are super happy where they're like, dude, this is awesome. I can't believe I don't have to go in all these places and change stuff.
It's they have to get to that light bulb moment. That's what we see all the time is you have that confusion phase of, oh my gosh, this is going to be hard to set. I just talked to someone yesterday. They said, I don't understand why I thought it was hard to set up now because the light bulb went off and now they get the vision of where it's going and all the automation. But until you get to that light bulb moment, it can be a little daunting and you do need to ask a lot of questions. And Shannon was really good about that. If she had questions, she would ask them and she
all the time.
Yeah. She moved through the funnel really quick because of it though. And that's the good thing is you do need to ask questions and you do need to think through the strategy because you don't want to set this up and then think, oh, let me change that strategy and have to go back and change the stuff. So spending the planning time up front is well worth it. One of the, I don't know if you answered that one, Daniel, it went off there, but one that's looking for Daniel's website to contact him, it's interface.re. interface.re. I'll go ahead and put that in the, oh, I can't put it in the chat because I turned it off, but it's easy, interface.re.
Yeah.
Okay, I have FUB integrated with OTC already. Is there anything else I need to do to set this up?
Yeah, so to set it up, we would essentially schedule a call with us and we'd go over what forms you'd want. And then we essentially can just duplicate the form you already have set up. And then we would need to know exactly what you want for the other forms. So we have a whole process. We have intake forms that have like optional fields that are already on the forms that you can just select. And then you can just let us know any other fields beyond what's optional. So we could put custom fields and then we have to set up the mapping. So you just let us know this field on this form needs to go to this field in CISO. And depending on how in-depth your process is, we can set up like a shared spreadsheet to map everything out. I think we're using like Confluence, Shannon. So we have a Confluence page and
like Google Drive, where I can just go in and type stuff.
Yeah, if the form field is this, then go to this field. And if form field is this, then add this contact with this contact info. And then we just build it out.
Yeah. And anyone that, just so everyone knows on this call, we're really leaning into our third-party vendor community and really trying to give these guys the tools to build stuff for you so that the onus isn't on us and you guys can do some really custom stuff. And so the cool thing about the developers that we have as partners that we're partnering with on all these projects is they really don't trample on each other. They really have their own little areas. So like Daniel does this, Barra Agency is really good with the API on, that was the one I was mentioning about Boomtown. They have an inside track on Boomtown. They do a ton of stuff as well. Osiris, they have their own little thing where they're going to build out a pre-made account for you and you can still hook in Daniel's stuff on top of these other vendors. So there's a lot of vendors out there that we're going to be leaning into. You're going to hear more about in the coming months as I do webinars with them. And you're going to be able to pick and choose the best of each and see what works for your business and then implement those things. And I think by the end of this, you guys are going to see a substantial decrease in your transaction time, probably close to 60 to 70% if you utilize some of these tools for sure.
Yeah. And just one thing to keep in mind is the way like modern technology works is like we can essentially build stuff onto open to close the same way that open to close can. So if you want a feature really badly, and instead of doing a feature request to Andrew and having to wait for that to come up and get done, you can come to us and let us know about the feature. And it's likely that we can build it in the same way that open to close would, but you won't have to wait for them to get around to it.
And we look at things as what's going to benefit the bulk of the community. So sometimes some people have very custom things they want to do. And so those are the things that you need to utilize these guys for, because we're looking at major projects and we're also looking at things that are going to benefit 70% of the clients. And so some of these little one-off things, much easier to go to Daniel. He can build it out as quick as he can for you and get it in there. It's going to be much faster than us putting it on the roadmap in the future. So
exactly.
yeah, and that's why we really want to build the community similar to Follow Boss. If anyone on this call is familiar with Follow Boss, I'm sure there's a lot. They really lean into their community and they really have a great community over there. We're basically copying that and mimicking that so that we can build the same type of community where everyone's sharing information and really helping each other get to that high efficiency mode. So
exactly.
Cool. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you coming on. I think this is going to help a lot of people. I think your phone's going to be blowing up, Daniel. Maybe not right away, but when this replay goes out and the other 250 people that register get a hold of this, be ready. Thanks, Shannon.
We're looking good now. We just brought on some new team members. So I think we have the team in place to handle the inquiries.
Feel free to reach out to Daniel. Do not reach out to Shannon. Please respect her time. Just because she's on here doesn't mean she wants to answer your questions all day. If you have questions, bring them to me. If we have a lot of the same questions, I'll take them to Shannon. We'll get those answered on Whissel Realty Group specific things if she wants to share those as well. But yeah, please don't blow her up. She was nice enough to come on here and give us some secrets and show us her systems. Yeah, thanks again for coming on, guys. And we will be back with another webinar next Wednesday. So please jump on there and we'll see you then. Have a great day.
Awesome.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. Bye.